This little metal box here is a home theater projector with 4K resolution, smart TV capabilities, and a built-in speaker. So you could just set this down anywhere you want and have a 120-inch 4K display anywhere you go. So this got me wondering, can a projector like this actually replace my TV? And more importantly, what kind of new benefits and use cases would a compact projector unlock that a TV just simply can't do? And for example, I don't want to spoil a video, but one cool thing I found was that I can mount this very easily on the headboard of my bed and watch a movie while I'm lying in bed on my ceiling. That's something that, like, yes, you could mount a TV on the ceiling above your bed, but that would just be downright scary and possibly even dangerous. So for reasons I'll discuss throughout this video, I have become increasingly fascinated by mini projectors. And now that we finally have a decent option with 4K resolution, I finally wanted to replace my TV for a week and see how it went. So the projector I'll be using in this video is this one right here, the LG CineBeam Q. It's a bit more premium than some other mini projectors out there, selling at $12.99, but fortunately LG sent me this one for this video, so thanks to LG for sending this over and for sponsoring this video. Now, before I get into the cool use cases that I found for this, let's start off with the basic setup of just replacing my TV in a living room or in a basement where I typically watch my TV. The first thing is that I did need to get a projector screen. I had one, so I just set this up in my basement. That was the first spot. And so the benefit there is that you do have a projector screen. You just roll it down. You kind of have your whole room when you're not using it. And when you are using it, you have like a big display kind of a little bit closer to you in the middle of the room. So I thought that was pretty cool if you're okay with having a projector screen there. This device here, kind of giving you a rundown of what this is and how it works. The resolution is 4K, so that's a benefit. You can go into the settings, and I'll show you that later on in the video. You can kind of tweak like the sharpness and different things like that to get the picture exactly as you want it. They recommend the screen size is up to 120 inches, but I found that a little bit less than that was probably optimal. Maybe somewhere around 100 inches really was best for me. And the method for projection is probably a big question a lot of you might be having right now. This is a 3-channel laser, and it goes up to 154% DCI P3 color gamut. So it's definitely very capable with the colors. Something I was quite surprised by was just how different the options for the color settings were. So standard color looks pretty vibrant. Vibrant color looks extremely vibrant. I found that for a lot of shows I was watching, going to cinematic mode looked the best, at least for me, not having super bright colors, but kind of just a nice cinema-like experience. But you can really play around with that quite a bit. And another thing to note is that this is running LG's WebOS, so that's going to be your operating system on here, much like a lot of LG TVs. I think the older ones ran this version of WebOS, so if you have an older LG TV, you're probably already familiar with this, but you can get like Netflix and YouTube and other, typical smart TV things on this projector, which means you don't have to plug anything else into here besides a power cable. But if you wanted to, another thing I did like is if I wanted to watch or, plug in a game console or plug in my laptop or anything like that, you are able to, well, you can wirelessly connect. I'll talk about that in a second. But for this right here, you do have an HDMI port on the back, which I found was useful for plugging things in, but usually I would rather plug things in by USB Type-C. And then the HDMI actually has a second function where it can function as an output for your audio. So I could run audio to a soundbar because, I always say with TVs, don't spend at least some amount of money on a soundbar. Any cheap soundbar is going to be better than the built-in speakers on a TV. The same goes for this. This is way smaller than a TV, so it's no surprise that you're going to have a much better experience if you get a soundbar. So using a soundbar with this made a huge difference. You can also connect up to 2 different speakers by Bluetooth. That is actually what I did for most of what I was watching. So having a Bluetooth speaker, I thought it was pretty advantageous sitting in front of me. The advantage there was that I didn't have to run a cable underneath my carpet or around the room or something for a soundbar, which would typically be in the front of my room. Now, as far as setup goes with this, I left it out for the first, couple days just in that one room before I started experimenting in other locations. And setup is really quite easy. So you can project head on at a level angle here, but this little bar is not just a handle. Sure, it works as a cool little handle and it looks like a really tiny lunchbox, but if you rotate it down, it actually works as an adjustment for the angle of the projector, which I thought was a really smart idea here, to kind of give you more customization without having to prop up, like we've all done it. You're putting like magazines or whatever underneath the front of it, trying to get that angle right. This can do that very well. And in addition, looking above the lens on the front, you'll see a tiny sensor there. That is for automatic keystone and automatic focus. So you just set it up, it'll automatically adjust. Like if you're off on the angle, it'll keystone it, so it's a square. It's a nice, exactly as you'd want it to be, and it'll automatically focus as well. So setting it up, using that in the basement, I thought that was really quite good. Now the basement, I do have blackout curtains, so the 1-to-1 there, I thought like it did a good job. It was definitely able to do that as long as you plug in an external source for sound. This does have a 450,000 to 1 contrast ratio, and if you dial up the settings at all to like sharpen it or add more contrast, like yeah, you can definitely tell that. I actually didn't need quite that much contrast and definitely not that much sharpness on here, but kind of summarizing like the standard TV replacement before we get into the cool other ways I used this. The only downsides I found were if the room was really bright and you have a strong glare, then maybe, other projector screens could mitigate this, but this does have 500 ANSI lumens, fairly bright, but there are some TVs that are going to be brighter and more glare resistant out there if you're traditionally watching in a very bright room. By the way, throughout this video, you might see I plugged in a white cable to this. The one that comes in the box is actually a black cable. It's the same thing, I just used a different cable for this video. Another thing to note is that this does have some fan noise. I'll get into a test right now. It's really not that loud or intrusive at all, but it certainly does exist. So for a fan noise test, you can hear the fan. Pretty faint. But let's just say you were sitting like incredibly close to the projector, maybe like less than 2 feet away. We'd be looking at about 46 decibels. All right, cool. So that was the first scenario, just a 1-to-1, which is going to be the most difficult for this to replace your TV. Obviously, TVs being stationary have their advantages, being brighter, having a sound bar right under them, stuff like that. But this thing has the advantage of weighing 3 pounds. It's 5 inches by 5.5 inches by 3 inches. Like it's a compact little device that, unlike a TV, which is large and breakable and annoying to move, this thing can go anywhere you want it to. So some options for where I found this would be really beneficial. The first one is in a small apartment. I used to live in a very small apartment and I just didn't have room for a TV. Like sometimes your kitchen and your living room are kind of the same thing, and if you have a TV, then you don't have room for enough seating. And so having a projector there is really nice. It's a nice way to have the full space whenever you don't want to watch TV. But if you want to watch a movie, you just roll down a projector screen, set this on a coffee table in front of you, and you can watch it on your living room. Like it's really a nice setup there. A second option I found was in a party as a second TV. For example, if you're watching the Super Bowl, maybe you have a Super Bowl party, and if you have your standard large TV in the living room, maybe you'd have this over in the kitchen. So this could very well replace like a kitchen TV that you want that counter space. You don't want to have a TV there, but sometimes you want to have a TV. Maybe for parties, maybe for things like that. You could just get this out, set it up there, project it onto a wall, which works just fine, or of course projector screens work even better. A third option, and this is a cool one, this is probably my favorite one, is if you're going on a tailgate at night. Some people could also use this for like camping and stuff like that, or maybe I should say glamping. But again, at night, outside, it's really cool to have this, not having to like haul around a giant TV. If you're going to a tailgate, like hanging on a sheet on the side of like your camper or your truck or something like that, like that's awesome. I think having something like this would be great. Something to note though, is that this does not have a built-in battery. Most others that do have a built-in battery typically last 1 to 2 hours anyway, so no matter what, you'll probably want to bring an external power source. With this one, I would recommend bringing just like a portable power station. I've reviewed a ton of them in the past, and if you're going like camping or tailgating, it's a great accessory to have anyway, so I don't know, you could just plug into that, or you could plug into like your truck or your car, for example. Next option, this one is kind of as like a cool little accessory within your house on a wall that you don't always use for projecting for like television, for example. And you can actually use like ambient wall art or mood imagery, which I think is kind of cool. Again, if you're having like a party, maybe a themed party, for example, you could have something cool just projected on the wall anywhere as an extra decoration or filling up some space on your wall. cool thing that you could do with a projector like this being so small. And as I mentioned in the intro of this video, probably my favorite one, or at least one of my favorite ones, is mounting this to the headboard of my bed. And so because this little bar kind of flexes in any direction, 360 degrees, I put it a little bit above the projector, and then I just had a hook or like a coat hanger or something behind my headboard. Really simple to set that up, like a little eye bolt will be just fine. So you just mount that right there, and it'll hang on your headboard, and you can adjust the angle like that so it shines just above where you're laying down in bed, and yeah, you now have a TV on your ceiling, so you can have movie night without having to like sit up or anything like that. Like, it's cool. And if you can also have a sleep timer on here as well, so you can watch TV laying in bed, just fall asleep very comfortably, and like, I just think that's really cool that you can do that. And so portable. And then kind of the last one I thought of here is not one that I personally have used, but I could definitely see this being beneficial. And that is for meetings, for presentations, or maybe like classrooms that don't already have a projector. Those three situations I think could be great for this. Being 4K, being able to present on a really large display like that without having to like go through any kind of IT trouble of going to a new room, trying to figure out how to connect your laptop to that. Like, you just plug into this and you know for a fact it's going to work. So in a darker living room or basement, this can replace a TV. In a lot of other situations, it's better than a TV, but there are some situations where it's not going to be the best for replacing a TV. As I mentioned before, in a brighter room, if you have a strong glare or something like that, or if you have a lot of people walking between you and the TV, like obviously a projector is going to have some shadows, then maybe it's not going to be the best situation there. Another one is anybody who is like a hardcore cinema nerd, you know exactly who you are, and you want like darker blacks than a projector would be able to give you, then again, like, you know who you are. But I think for most people out there, this is a really cool device. Now, I mentioned a couple times in this video that the speaker on here, I recommend getting an external speaker, but let's get into a little speaker test and you can see for yourself what the speaker quality and volume is actually like. All right, so let's check out a speaker test. I'm gonna film with my iPhone just so you have a general idea of the volume. The colors don't look like that in real life. iPhone just can't really handle the laser projection. All right, let's start off.
And it just does fundamental
50% volume,
like I said, phone
right
calls,
here.
Timers, basic stuff that you need, but it's not going to have like Siri or Uber or anything more advanced.
So not particularly loud, but let's go up to 100%.
Not the cheapest, but not the most expensive from Garmin either. Kind of somewhere in the middle. Maybe not affordable for everyone, but we'll talk about some cheaper ones later in the video. And in addition, if there's any,
so you can definitely hear what is going on
below. They are affiliate.
But like I said, a soundbar would really make a world of difference here. Now, getting into some pros and cons with this that I haven't already mentioned in this video. Some positives, you are able to cast to this from iOS or Mac and from Android as well. So you have built-in Apple AirPlay 2 and you have screen share on Android. So no matter what device you're using, basically, you're able to cast videos on here as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi. I think that is really beneficial. We do also have on the back, like I showed you, USB Type-C and HDMI inputs, which is going to be great for plugging in a laptop, for example. It works really well. It pairs with dual Bluetooth audio as well. So one Bluetooth speaker is great, but you could have one on either side if you wanted to have two Bluetooth speakers. And as I mentioned, on the right side, there is a Kensington security slot. So if this is something, I'm not sure exactly where that would be most useful, maybe in like a classroom or something like that, you could lock this to a desk or a cart or whatever and kind of just prevent it from any sticky hands that might find this as appealing as you do. Now, some cons of this, as I mentioned, there is no battery built in, so just bring a portable power station, not really a big deal. And being how compact this is, you are limited on the speaker volume, so just get an extra, external speaker on here. But as far as will this replace my TV for long term, it depends on where I am. In some environments, like I said, this is going to be better than a TV. But in my living room, yeah, I don't know. I could see a lot of people in smaller apartments wanting to replace their TV with this. It's not going to be for everyone, and it's certainly not the best for every environment out there. But if anything, in my opinion, this is a really cool product. Now in 4K, that's pretty amazing. And it unlocks some use cases that were basically impossible with a traditional TV that's heavy, breakable, and space consuming. So let me know what your thoughts are on small projectors like this getting better and better and potentially replacing TVs, at least in some environments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next video.